All right, here we go. Got everything set up properly. All right, Vcard. If you have been paying attention to the VTuber world, especially in the Western indie scene, you are probably fairly familiar with Gamersupps. They are the energy drink supplement manufacturer that Shy Lily is a co-owner of at this point because she sold so many of these. I have my owner over here. Actually, let me take a sip. I think I'm kind of thirsty. They've also produced merch of all kinds. Their latest endeavor is Vcard Rising Stars, a TCG based around indie VTubers that they are contracted with, which is pretty damn neat. But I do have a lot of thoughts about it and about card games in general. If you follow my content in general social media ramblings for a while, you probably know that I'm an aficionado for card games. I've been so for frankly most of my life. Be it with the original Pokemon cards release all the way back in the ancient early days, the years and uncountable dollars I spent on Magic the Gathering. That one time I was running around with like an OG Jizzle deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! My torrid and unforgettable love affair with Fantasy Flight era Netrunner. The basics of it is that I love card games. I love deck builders, even if they do get like structurally samey at certain levels. And I love them not because of their complexity, but because of how that complexity is utilized. Let's talk about that a little as we're opening this up. They have sold out, by the way, of V cards at this moment, and I have not heard anything about any reprints yet. So I was lucky enough to get on that initial wave when they were taking pre-releases, and this arrived a few days ago, and now I'm able to open it. Now, when I talk about card games and loving complexity, especially in how they developing stories, one of the best examples I can think of from a modern new card game, or relatively new card game, it's been a few years now, is the One Piece TCG, which, for as popular as it is ultimately a really simple and straightforward combat-based sort of game. There are at least here and there somebody on the design team that actually knows what they're doing and what I consider the most important aspect of TCGs, their storytelling. One Piece's controversial life mechanic, for instance, is actually my favorite of the genres because it's on its face so competitively bad. The resources and especially the potentially game-changing triggers coming out of life you gain for taking hits is very frustrating if your intention is to win rare cards and invitational slots for their tournaments. But it does manage a twofold storytelling benefit. It's reflective of the back and forth of a shonen anime fight, where the harder you fight, the more willpower you're able to leverage, even as you come near death. And more specifically, it's a rubber banding mechanic for an anime about a rubber-powered hero. Spoilers for Wano arc and after notwithstanding. I would in fact argue hotly that the One Piece TCG would not be nearly as popular without it. Oh, look, box topper. Actually, yeah, why did I get from box topper? I think it was the Vienna cards, that was box topper, right? Go ahead and open. I also got the Vcard branded sleeves, 100 of them. That's enough for 2 decks. Foil, these are acceptable. Foil quality is acceptable. The Artist series, so these are special edition cards. Oh, Punkalope. Hello. Punkalope, as some of you might know, is in fact under a different name these days. Nice, the punk rock chick sort of look. I like the vibes at least. These are art cards only. These are not representative of the game itself, but they do have the artist signature and foil, which I find to be particularly nice. Let me go ahead and sleeve that up actually. If nothing else, given the opportunity, I would like to have these signed by the VTubers themselves. But where was I? Oh yeah, I would argue that the One Piece TCG's life mechanic would not be, that the game itself would not be nearly as popular without that controversial mechanic. I mean, for all the gripes of its player base and the misery of its life system represents to its top-level players, a competitive One Piece game that doesn't embody the last hit climax of a major story fight is one that's fundamentally a failed design, right? It's just not a One Piece game at that point. It's simply a card game with One Piece branding, which, quite frankly, I've seen a lot of with games that simply don't last. Go ahead and select this in. These are a very nice fit. Nice. Booster designs. I kind of don't like that there are so many varieties, art varieties, in the boosters themselves, right? Because like, this is just 3. These are all very different designs. They all tend to be a little lewd because Western VTubers is what it is. But it also means that it's not recognizable as part of the same original block set. I much prefer if there is like a uniform, at least background, but unless there's like a special pack. There's apparently like 1 god pack, 600 odd god packs out there in the wild. No guarantee that any individual box has them. If I'm lucky, I'll show you what's in those contents. But this is what the boosters for the base set looks like, and as you can see, 3 different colors. But it's whatever. Well, there's basically 1 color for every elemental type. There's like 5 elemental types for the game. Where was I? Yeah. One Piece TCG actually reflects One Piece as an anime. That's why I like it so much, despite my gripes with it from a purely competitive standpoint. And boy, do I have gripes about it from a purely competitive standpoint. I do not have any actual problems with One Piece as a game itself, because I find that the story that it tells as a game is in fact properly shonen, right? It is a shonen battle card game simulator. And that's awesome. I like that. Showing off the boosters. But that is also in part what makes Magic so incomparable as a TCG. Richard Garfield's fundamental insight, the one that basically defined the entire card game, especially collectible card game genre, was that elements that can change the very rules of the game are the very same elements that puts the narrative of a game in the player's hands, granting them the fullest range of agency and expression possible. Everything from what cards they decide to put them in to the mechanics they want to focus on is a way for 2 players to tell a story of conflict between distinct ideologies of play, or to highlight the nuances between 2 identical approaches by how it clashes against itself. And that's a huge part of why I am always a devotee of Netrunner as a game as well. It's so embarrassingly thoroughly even, because it goes even further than Magic does in a lot of ways by giving the players tools to tell a story through a semi-randomized medium. Between that massively flexible action economy with the action clicks, that actually determine how many cards you can draw a turn, how much money you can gain a turn, how many cards you can play a turn, to the way that a corporate player sets up a maze of decisions and misdirections. Every last game of Netrunner, to me, is a woven tapestry of plots, subplots, and subterfuge, all in aesthetically delicious cyberpunk dressing. And that's how I'm judging Vcard, right? Gamersupps, VTuber-centric collectible card game. It's through that storytelling-centric lens that I'm finding myself kind of unsatisfied, honestly, with its overall design as a game. These are the basics. These are all support cards. This is Quinn's card, basics Quinn card. To go over like the rough scope of how Vcard works, the object of the game is to have your VTuber come out as the more powerful of the 2 against your opponent's VTuber, right? A straight up clash of numbers found at the top over here, either bolstered or weakened by elemental RPS and fat cards. Every turn you're allowed to play 2 cards. You have basically the representative VTuber in the middle, and you're allowed to play 2 cards, either a mascot or a support card. Let me try to find one. This is Reinhold. Reinhold's card art is not too bad. A support. This is Sansen as a talent. Yes, a grass shield support card. You're allowed to play up to 2 cards per turn in the round. 1 support card, 1 mascot. The mascots will affect the overall power of the talents that's acting as the power. The support cards will have effects this one. Your opponent's grass par level card cannot benefit from any elemental power level advantage this round. This negates like some of the power they can gain from that particular round. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there are some nuances in that the elements of your mascot can attack the opponent's mascots. Like water will put out fire. Yeah, strengths against fire, weak against lightning. So if you put this down, so if they put down a fire mascot, for instance, and you slap this down, you can knock out their fire mascot and therefore weakening them for that turn. But then they play electric mascot and knock yours out, etc., etc. Oh, this is a buff card. Oh, this is a really nice looking buff card, actually. There's also like with the V-Star cards in Pokemon, your talent cards will sometimes have an ability that you can activate once a round, not per turn, but once a round, for the duration in which that card is fighting against another card. And the higher level ones tend not to have powers compared to the level 8 ones, which needs extra boost to win against level 9s and level 10s, right? Once either players run out of cards to play or if VTubers maintain superior power levels for more than 2 of their turns, you resolve the fight and score whoever came out on top, first to 5 wins. And that's really, really simple. In fact, I would argue it's even too simple. Well, look at Benson. Foil Benson. That's a rare mascot. And that's the Learn to Play card. Like, I've mentioned Pokemon and V-Star Power. Pokemon's probably the most straightforward example, like equivalent to Vcard. As both are primarily centralized around a central lane of conflict. Your active Pokemon versus your opponents. But where the Pokemon TCG thrives is how that dynamic gets affected by every other card in the field. How much damage you're able to absorb in exchange. The possibilities of your EX or V-Star Pokemon getting knocked down in a revenge kill, like that grants them 2 prizes instead of just a 1 for a kill. How the abilities of your bench Pokemon affects the field of play, and what their checks and what checks their abilities have on the discard pile, the total number of Pokemon on the bench, the total energy attached, etc. Subsequently, the way that a Regidrago discard deck plays, for example, wanting to dump half of the deck to access all of the discarded Dragon's attacks, it's extremely different in style and feel and pacing than a Gardevoir Mana Pump deck that wants to empower and damage psychic Pokemon like Screamtail that are more opponent than basically the more they're bruised up, right? Like a Screamtail can't, like a Regidrago deck is pretty much drop a powerful dragon into your discard, use Regidrago to access that Pokemon's attacks, and then deal a whole bunch of damage for effectively cheaper than what that would have possibly costed with the original dragon. And whereas Gardevoir is set up a Gardevoir, use the ability, pump all of your discarded energy onto a Pokemon, and then just they turn into nuke. It's basically you're building 2 different styles of artillery and blasting each other's faces. And because of that, I consider Pokemon probably the most samey of the mainstream TCGs on the market. It's still ultimately a kid's game. Despite the scalpers, despite the hype, despite all the attention on it, and the way it's designed is to make the decks effectively self-piloting to some extent or another. I mean, each deck identity is definitely clearly expressed. I'm especially a fan of how the Goldengo decks simulate throwing a Gatling gun of currency at a target, simulating the Pokemon's signature Make It Rain attack. But it's still ultimately a game about making your 1 attack per turn as meaningful as possible, with that meaning extended to both the resources accrued and how you're setting up the rest of the game by making that attack. And there is no such intricacy with Vcard, at least not that I can tell. I've gone over the rules repeatedly, especially last night, Saturday for the stream. Like, every scored round is isolated to itself. Every card played is geared towards having the higher power level in the here and now. I mean, there are some minor elements of resource management that are pretty much universal to all card games, right? Card counting the remaining resources you haven't yet drawn, estimating the probability of drawing into the right elemental mascot. But these are ultimately minor effects towards the same singular shared narrative between both sides and the win condition of either side of the conflict. There's really no difference in how you're playing the... Oh, it's Numi. I have a Numi poster in my room, by the way. There's really no difference between how these cards are played from deck to deck. You pretty much have universal access to all of the supports here. -3 to opponent's power level card is a pretty nasty card to play, for instance, because power level is so hard to come by. But this is a really cute meat card. A silly cave woman who loves to have fun but will do anything to protect her cave and her meat hits. A level 9 card. That's cute. But yeah, it's ultimately all the same. Oh hey, shiny called Miko. Level 8, display reaction. If you lose this round, your next power level card gets +1. So, like, this would be exception to what I was talking about. And that actually does set up your next round. If Miko loses, your next card gets a natural +1 to the effect. That is pretty nice as an overall, like, snowball strategy. But it's kind of whatever. It's ultimately really straightforward. It's unsatisfying to me as somebody who's played literal decades worth of TCGs. To one extent or another, to one competitive level or another. I used to play the same store as Channel Fireball, actually, who have since been bought out by TCG Player, who's run by Amazon. So hey, those guys definitely got the bag, although I'm a little sad to see that there is centralization happening to the TCG scene. I don't like it. I don't trust corporate involvement like that. Nobody should. Yeah, honestly, in terms of little narrative design, like, if Magic the Gathering is a sprawling novel from game to game, especially its Commander games, where you have 4 different sets, you get to have 1 copy of a card each, and there are some, despite that, there are some ludicrously broken strategies and combos and sequences in a 4-player game of Commander. Like, that would be like the Game of Thrones of card games, right? In the status quo. It would be the Game of Thrones of competing, like, politics, maneuverings, and combat. And then Vcard barely qualifies as a short story summary, little narrative. Like, this is not a game as it is that I am willing to invest a whole lot of time and effort to get particularly competitive and good at, even if there is like a scene for it. Mostly because there isn't all that much depth there to chew on, at least as it is. As the game, oh, Chibi Lanya, that's nice. Lanya, do you have a pretty model? Juniper? God, I love Juniper's monster design so much. So peak. Platinum Guardian, these are generic. Another meat. Oh, that's a really shiny Limu in green. These are the basic rares, if I recall correctly. Like, these are basically just foiled versions of the base card. So it's like whatever. There are obviously this is a modern card game, so the higher the rarity, the more extravagant the art. And I have seen the examples of the arts, and they get extremely extravagant indeed. But yeah, I'm dissatisfied fundamentally with how Vcard is designed as a game. But I do see some potential there. The question really becomes, right, how can we make this game worth our time and effort? If it's too simple and straightforward right now, what changes can you make to the game without disrupting all of the fundamental core designs to make this game more appealing to system nerds like me? I do have one particular idea that requires probably the least amount of changes to how the cards are currently designed and printed. And it's just adding a basic horizontal element to the game that allows for more points to be scored at once. You'll probably need to move the win condition of the game from 5 points to 10 points by doing so, but even 10 points may not be enough. But I do feel that adding that horizontal element might be all you need to make this game interesting. And what I mean is by allowing multiple power cards to be put into play at once, like with Magic. Having multiple cards in play per round means additional dimensions of threat and conflict. It's naturally much easier to score points even if you have 2 VTubers on the field to your opponent's 1. And even when you're evenly matched, actually no, less like Magic and more like Yu-Gi-Oh! Then. But like, even when you're evenly matched, attaching mascots and support cards to one VTuber inherently means you have fewer resources to defend the other VTuber. It forces careful consideration of resource commitment and procedures of play. Like, anybody stupid enough to just dump their hands at once from the start onto one card deserves to suffer the consequences of doing so. Lucy Pyre. Oh shit! Heavenly Father is a full art card. Look at this. You know what? I know a friend of a friend that could probably get this like actually signed by him. My sleeves. Gotta sleeve this one up. That would be interesting. Actually, I met the dude once in VR chat not too long ago, like a couple weeks ago. Like, if you allow multiple lines of play like that, oh, it's a level 10 card too. This is like max rarity for platinum style card. Like, if you allow, it forces more, like, allowing more power cards on the field at once and forcing players to consider which power cards to support in any one given conflict also forces much more interesting deck building decisions. Assuming that each named VTuber can only be a one of per round, for instance, like if you put down a level 9 Heavenly Father, it means that you're no longer allowed to be playing that level 10 Heavenly Father, right? You have to choose from your pool of cards which one to play. If you have only one particular card represented among all power tiers in hand and nobody else, you're just you're screwed. You're forced to play that one. But that's just how you're going to have to consider what you're forced to consider when designing your deck. It forces deck customization to be balanced between having a sufficiently diverse set of VTubers to allow for multiple avenues of threats, against having a deep enough pool of supports and mascots to optimize their impact against opposing power cards. And it's that dimensional broadening of the game's strategy that also greatly expands the range of interactions that the game is allowed to explore. And how it ties overall to the story of VTuber content creation and VTuber peers competing in whatever they're happening to be competing at the time. And particularly the elements of collabs, groupings, personality synergies. None of these aspects of VTuber content creation is currently allowed to be reflected within the very limited and very simplistic rule set of Vcard's fundamental design. It's just fundamentally not allowed to support that range of things because of how simple its interactions are in the status quo. But that is something that their peers are already doing, because there are actually more than one VTuber card games out in the market now. Most famously, Hololive has beaten everybody to it with the release of the Hololive OCG, which is coming out, by the way, with the English release soon. They announced it last week. Trickery. It is still very much like a Pokemon-like, but with a further evolution in that a lot of the cards you're playing are going to be collab cards, specifically designed for collab effects, and with a hero card as well to sort of set the tone and setting of the overall game. The Rainhole card, and this is a Sayu 8. Guided Aim. If the opponent has more cards in hand, gain +1 this round. Interesting. So the faster you burn through your hand, the more powerful Sayu is. That's an interesting design decision. But if Hololive is already designing the games to try to represent the overall narrative of VTuber collabs and VTuber content creation specific to their branches, the Vcard's already in trouble from the start. Because this game, what story does Vcard actually tell when you're playing this game? What story is reflected in comparing the top fold number, like a 9 versus a 10? It's not actually telling all that much. What story do you tell by giving you support cards that increase the overall power of your VTuber and knocks out a mascot? How does that actually represent what's going on in VTuber communities, right? What is the storytelling being done by Vcard as it is? That I can't tell you, because I don't think they have that in mind in the first place. It doesn't feel as there are a lot of in-jokes in here. Exposed is literally stripping off your model. Battle cries, that happens a lot with a lot of guy streams. Kind of whatever. And the art is good. I have seen worse arts out of modern card games by a significant level. I especially am not too pleased with an elements-based. I forgot what it's called. It's elemental something. It has a really cutesy like Neopets design, but the art all looks like it's AI generated. Completely soulless and also just completely tasteless too, because it looks really corporate, like fundamentally very, very corporate. Hello, is this an art card? Hello, this is an art card. Oh, so the backs of these, some of them at least, actually like connect to each other, I think. Like so? Yeah, like so. So if I collect enough of these, I can make like a whole ass poster out of Vcard backs. And that I think is a nice mechanic. It makes that even the throwaway cards are a little collectible. I'll have to keep that in mind as I look through this pile of it. But like, I can't say that they're doing the artists poorly. These are all well represented. Even the basic full art frames show off enough of the art to appeal. I kind of think that the cheesecake factor is taking away a little bit of it. I also think that the text box as designed means that you can't really make this game particularly complex or interesting as a game. Like you're self-limiting by not using like partial transparency effects. Huh, Doki's true form. Nice. But all these can be addressed in future versions. It's not as if Magic hasn't iterated upon its basic card designs over and over throughout the years, right? Like if you follow TCG history at all, you're fully aware of Wizards' experiments with card faces and card designs, and even like two-face cards, which I really didn't like when they were released, but kind of just whatever now because they finally given and accepted that everybody's going to be using sleeves in the first place when they're competing. And you can in fact replace those cards with stand-ins that just say this is meant to represent this. You can pull it out from your deck box and replace it on the field or whatever. It's whatever. A lot of these mascots are based on, well, you know, not everybody has a mascot or like an Oshi Flare or whatever, but the fact is it's actually really useful for brand exercises like this. That's a really nice Camilla card. Two Heavenly Fathers. Two Heavenly Father level 10s. By the way, you're allowed a max of 4 of one particular card. Like I can, like if it's a level 9 or 8, it doesn't count towards your limit, but you only can have like 4 level 10 Heavenly Fathers. But yeah, Vcard is already, from the start, they're already falling behind as a game to a lot of their peers, and specifically this niche. Like, this is the niche of card games, right? A VTuber specific card game, loosely based around the Pokemon TCG mechanics, and they're already less complicated, less interesting as a game compared to the Hololive TCG, which is this a rare? Oh shit, multiple rares. Hey, this is a triple foil card booster. Shit. Full art White Knight, full art Vey, and foil Totless. So this is what I mean by like extended like text box sections, right? Like the Vey is age infant. Yeah, it's just basically her stats block as a VTuber and a quilt. Only level 8 cards have effects, which I find is a design limitation. Like it makes up for the fact that you only play level 8 with the fact that it has some modifications to it. But a lot of the modifications simply aren't all that interesting. Like you saw with Sayu, for instance, a level 8 card that boosts itself by 1 point to become a level 9 card if you have fewer cards than the opposing player. that's fundamentally not all that interesting compared to something that actually affects the board. But the game simply doesn't have the space to have board effects, not as it is. Which is why I think the best thing they can do is further modify the rule set to allow for a horizontal element of play, right? To have an actual field of control. And allowing for multiple threats, encouraging you to have a diversity of possible options to play, encouraging collab mechanics, all that stuff that really starts to make the game stand out, or if not stand out, then at least trigger the puzzle solving aspects, the puzzle solving instinct that a lot of card game aficionados like myself are drawn to. I do like that I have a full art White Knight though. That's nice. And critiques about its frame design notwithstanding, maybe they want to keep it simple. There is a lot of arguments in favor of keeping things as simple as possible, simply to make sure that it reaches a sufficiently large audience. And if that's the approach they want to take with the overall game, then that's legit. I don't necessarily have the most issues with that particular train of thought, but I do have issues with the fact that this is a game that's designed by somebody with only a vague sort of background in card games in general. Because I don't like cash-ins. I don't like what's the phrase I'm looking for? I don't like games that are basically just meant to cash in on fads or cash in on somebody's popularity. I like games that are legitimately games. And although pretty, and let's be completely fair, the art is pretty good, or at least pretty funny. And that is a full art of Sky. It is pretty. It's just pretty is not enough. I just dropped the card. Now, I also did kickstart the Face Connect game that is also supposed to come out soon. That one, from what I've seen of the rule set, actively is engaging with the storytelling level of VTubing content creation, right? They have all sorts of things about audience growth, collabs, interactions, stuff like that. I have a Peepa Pipkin card from last year's Offkai. Although they weren't able to actually demonstrate the game. I've been waiting for that game for a while. When the hell is that package coming? But yeah, I did kickstart that. I will give a similar review and breakdown of the game when it comes out. But I can already tell you, as a system and as a storytelling medium, I'm more impressed with Face Connect actually putting in the effort to make a proper game. As things are right now, another Sky, nice. And a Deontay. I do like that I'm getting some of these full arts. Well, these aren't the super rare stuff, right? Is there a rarity mark anywhere? Oh, down there. So this is a 2 stars, silver star. So these aren't like max rarity either. These are simply like level 9 and level 10 you have full art. And that's kind of whatever. But I will set aside the full art stuff because I feel fundamentally they're just more interesting as collectibles. Whereas the full frame stuff is just one kind of whatever. But if you want to talk about a game, especially a TCG that I'm really, really into right now, that is in fact a new TCG made by a first-time TCG producer. Like, the guy was not part of Wizards, was not part of Konami or Bandai. He just sat down one day and decided, I want a game that works like this. And that would be Altered TCG, which is really, really popular in the EU right now specifically, especially in France. I'm always running it across French players, even when it's supposed to be French off hours. And I have a tournament in Altered tonight, actually, with the Altered Corner group that's operating out of Texas. But Altered, talk about a storytelling endeavor. You have 2 lanes, 2 expeditions. You're trying to advance your expeditions on both sides, so as that your hero and their spiritual companion will meet somewhere in the middle, or maybe even all the way on one side or another, and basically win the game. Because at that point, their union basically affects the reality around them, and they become the dominant enneagrammatic factor in that slice of reality. It's kind of, the lore's kind of weird. It uses the mana system. It uses the mana system is especially interesting because it's discarding cards from your hand into the mana pool, meaning that every single turn you actually choose between having certain elements or certain powers available to you, and it causes choice paralysis, which I'm used to fighting over because the Netrunner causes even worse choice paralysis on a fairly constant basis. But the two-lane design, the way that the artifacts and permanents and characters interact, and the fact that it has a reserve pool so that cards you play don't simply disappear off into the aether, but become visibly accessible as resources you can use on the next turn, causing distortions and impacts on your opponent's decision making as well as your own. That makes it such a fascinating game to me. Like, it's not very popular yet. It's a brand new IP, no backing whatsoever. I think they can actually benefit from a VTuber collab or something just to like bring more attention to the game itself. I would be more than happy to give them the hookup. A Tob. Kokyu has a very, very interesting face to her. But yeah, if Altered wants to do VTuber collabs, even as like limited edition, like hero card alternatives, that would be something to explore. There are so many things they could do that they're not doing yet because it's such a brand new game and new IP, and frankly a brand new team as well. But it's a game that I believe is interesting enough to stand on its own. Just structurally, just the stories it tells about the struggles, the trials and tribulations, and the deceptions you can play by putting a threat down on one lane, forcing them to commit resources to that one, knowing that they've run out of mana, so you just simply hop over to the other lane and advance anyhow, despite all their efforts to stop you. That's amazing storytelling. Just fundamentally a game that supports good action, good interactions. And that's the sort of games I like. That's the sort of games I come back to and think about over and over and over again because why wouldn't I? That's for Numi. Nice. This one has no particular rares, although I do appreciate the level 9 Numi. I guess okay, so from the looks of it, like from this one pack, I have a level 8 Numi and a level 9 Numi. It's the same art, but the level 9 drops the frames for the full art and drops the abilities as well, such that the only real benefit from playing a level 9 versus level 8 is that the level 8 is only equivalent to level 9 if you play the same element as your opponent, gain +1 power. Gentle parity. That's actually interesting. No, it's not. Right. Talents can only be played once per round, not per turn. So for one turn, boom, this is a level 9. Why wouldn't you play this instead? Or why wouldn't you play a level 10 to fully max out her impact? Like I said, it's just not that interesting, especially compared to a V-Star power in Pokemon, where that one turn can potentially change the whole game around. Like if you ever play a Lugia deck or the Arceus decks, like the ability to just bring out your utilities from discard can drastically change the flow of the game, especially if the opponent has no way to actually deal with it. And there's nothing reflected like that in Vcard, as I'm seeing as I'm opening these packs. Topless full art, Contail VA. Yeah, pretty much the rest of the stream will be, at least the rest of the stream on Twitch, will just be card openings until I'm done with the box, found anything interesting, and then I'll probably make a clip of the most interesting card, or the most interesting cards I have found along the way. But yeah, I mean, if Gamersupps wants this game to have a long tail, there are some ways that they can give this game a long, proper tail. But it might require them to relaunch the game and its fundamental play structure. And if they want to talk about it, I'm right here. I can be contacted anytime. My email's easily found. Oh, Lana! Hello, Lana. That's a full art level 9 Lana. It's not a foil one, but that's alright. I like it. I love horror tubers, especially. They have such great designs. Just some of the most creative designs in the space. Are they everybody's taste? No. Are they my taste? Absolutely. Not to be too much of a fanboy. But yeah, I do appreciate that this card game means that everybody represented in this game is getting the bag. Like, this is proper support. This is a way to like further entrench their communities and audiences, and just show off, like give them a reward with fancy ass art for all the hard work they've been doing over the years. I do not get any complaints about this as a fan product, but I was never discussing this as a fan product this entire way. This is purely about how I think about the game from a game standpoint, and that's where it kind of all falls apart. There are some ways to make this much more interesting, perhaps more Pokemon-like, perhaps more Yu-Gi-Oh-like, or perhaps in ways that are simply not explored by mainstream TCGs. But the way that the game is designed right now means that you'll play this maybe once at a convention because there was an officially organized event, and then it goes collecting dust in the back of your closet for years and years, long after the VTubers involved have stopped making content. And then it'll be lucky if it doesn't end up in the landfill. And I don't like games that easily end up in landfills. Like, I throw away enough cards myself, but there are definitely like decks that I will keep, Magic cards, and especially Pokemon cards that I will keep for purely sentimental value. And that doesn't yet exist as they are for Vcard. At least as it is right now. I don't want to like completely blast them for the hard work that their developers and designers have put into this game, but it's quite clear to me that it's not as if they have Ryan Kibler design this game for them, right? Otherwise, there'd be somewhat like, it's quite clear that they were VTuber fans first and foremost, with some basic familiarity with Pokemon, and that's the basis. That's the origins of its overall design. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's nothing wrong with creating something just for your fans. Like, I've bought more than enough stickers, I've bought more than enough memorabilia simply to show support. And this is a good way to show support, to like showing up with a Talents V card and telling them you want your signature on this V card. That sort of justifies it on its own. But why would you be satisfied with that if you are Vcard's developer? Especially if you're Vcard's publisher. Why would you not want people to be properly invested into the game? Oh, Heavenly Father level 8. Calm response. If your opponent plays a support card, gain +1 to your next mascot card. That I don't like. Because as we have determined, your mascot cards can be knocked out by the opponent's mascot card. Which means that a calm response is setting yourself up to lose both the talent effect and your mascot based on the matchup you're facing. Weakness to grass, so if you face against a grass type deck, your mascot will actually cause you to just outright lose. But yeah, like, if I were to just outright rewrite the rules for this game. Like, the power cards would be the equivalent of a hero card. The mascots would be what you're using primarily to fight. Synergies between players' mascots would be the main determinant of how results play out. But at the bare minimum, just having the ability to field multiple talents instead of simply having the one, like, equivalent to an active Pokemon, makes the biggest possible strategic change to the game. Adds so many layers of possible strategies and game designs to the core game without affecting anything that's already been printed, right? Like, sure, future editions will want to print something that actually impacts that actually takes advantage of the multi-tier threats. Holy shit, this is strictly speaking not safe for work, because that's just a full-on ass. But damn, Yuzu's sexy. Oh shit, full art happiness chat. That's in some ways this is even worse. For art Silvertail. Okay. Yeah, this game is made for Gooners. Jesus. Look, art-wise, it's not as if it's not common knowledge that the Western VTuber scene tends to be full of Gooners and Gooner exploiters. I have eyes, you have eyes, we can see. But yeah. There are log grounds for improvements. I think improvements can be made without being too disruptive. The basic gist of it is they need somebody with more experience with TCGs. Or any experience with TCGs, to be quite honest. But yeah. After this, at I think a couple hours actually, yes. Exactly, like, well, not exactly. An hour and 15 minutes. I will probably have my Twitch stream up again to cover the Ace Weekly for Alter TCG. You'll get to see what I mean by the why I find that particular game so fascinating. As a brand new card game made by somebody with no actual background in making card games. Like, that's just actually very, very interesting to me. But yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. Hey, finally a Monarch. I like all of Monarch's costumes so far, but especially her new one when she announced her V Shoujo signing. Whew, that got me barking a little bit. I never bark. That got me barking a little bit. Hey, full art work-life balance? What the hell is work-life balance? Is this something you can eat? Choose one of the following options. 1, discard any number of cards from your hand. Gain +1 power level for each card discarded. Or 2, shuffle your discard pile into your deck and draw a card. This is something you want to run a full set of. Shit, man, this is like outright wins you games. If you're on last life, just drop this and nuke your hand. Full art bow. B. Shishimi, Benson, Pirate Trickery, Vey. So content creators, I'm just kind of whatever. Doppelganger, Snack Cat, Sanson level 9, Pirate Trickery as level 8. Small bargain, discard 1 mascot card from your hand, draw 1 card. That's actually really powerful. Card draw inherently and card cycling inherently is a major factor to TCGs. More cards means more options, which is always good. Any system mechanic that encourages you to dig through your deck for the right card at the right moment is inherently a good system. that's actually a point of frustration with Altered. As interesting as it is, it feels really stifling, and that outright from the start, it tells you to drop a 6-card hit into 3 to give your initial set of energy, and it is really stingy on card draw effects. Not completely absent, but really stingy. I like expressive games, you know. It is a very, very expressive game foundationally, but there are some aspects in Altered TCG that I find could be substantially improved. All right, final pack. We have Goro, Nanners mascot, Chabot for Punkalopi, Electrobites for Quinn, Akumi. The opponent has more cards in hand, gain +1 to his round. It has the same thing as side use. Yuzu again. Jesus Christ, you use. Opponent's so close. Monarch, Water Shield, Happiness Chan, Shoto, and Totless. And that's all she wrote. I got nothing else. Why did I sleeve some of these? These are just basically level 8 foils. Anyhow, the most interesting card is probably the Punkalopi one with the foil signature. That one's fun. Literally, she graduated from Punkalopi with Explosion, which is funny. I can probably get it signed. It probably will not be too hard to get it signed. I don't want a Vcard. The full art support cards like White Knight and Work-Life Balance probably won't be worth anything until this game actually develops legs. And I gotta be quite honest, I don't really see that happening. At least not until they improve a lot of its fundamental design. Yeah, it is what it is. So that's all for now. Again, I will be streaming on Twitch in a couple hours for my participation in the Ace Weekly for Altered TCG. I'll see you all then. Thank you all for watching. If you happen to be from Gamersupps, please consider this me as interested in making sure your game has legs and longevity rather than just an outright attack for being a hater. Like, sure, I could just take the Kendrick Lamar route and just go full on the hate, but honestly, there's no reason for me to. I want to see TCGs in this space thrive. I want to see all avenues of participation in VTuber communities to thrive. And I have a lot of ideas for how that can be done on a structural level with games like these. Especially games that happen to have a lot of similarities with existing IP, like with the Pokemon TCG. It's just that as it is designed right now, this doesn't get a passing grade for me. Like halfway through this stream, I did go through extensively of what I think the game can do to make itself more interesting on the fundamental level, to make it fun to play, even if you were to drop every single name and every single identifiable VTubers art and just make it an original IP, still interesting enough that people might have developed a minor competitive scene to it. But if it's simply to cash in on the indie VTubers popularity, this is not good enough. So please talk to somebody with more experience in the competitive TCG scene to get a consultation for how this can be improved. I am not pitching my own services. I have never been nationally ranked in any card game. I am simply an aficionado for card games in general and devotee for Netrunner in particular. But please, this could be interesting. It just takes a couple tweaks. It could be more than a cash grab. And I think you owe it to your audience and your creators that have signed on with Gamersupps to make this more than a simple cash grab. It wouldn't be that hard. I promise you, it's not going to be that hard to make this an interesting game. And that's all I have to say about it for now. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in a couple hours.